creative industries have emerged as one of the leading sectors in the economy.
Starting up a small recording studio in my dad's garage, it's all it took.
My story was more like experimenting with variety of flavors, baking cupcakes, brownies, donuts.
Breakthroughs are usually when you find a new way to do something.
Oh well, me and my sister set up a fashion label because we just couldn't find what we wanted in shops.
Breaking rules and great stories start with how you dare to do things differently.
So, how do you start and sustain a business?
All these and more as Africa's Global Bank, UBA, presents Mind Your Own Business, a radio program designed to initialize, educate, and motivate young entrepreneurs emerging as strong players in the local and global economy. Stay tuned for Mind Your Own Business, proudly brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank.
This is Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank.
Good morning. Welcome to Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank. I'm Wole Famerewa. Thank you for joining us this morning. I will continue to bring you stories of Nigerian entrepreneurs, people who are making impact in this economy with all its challenges. And today we bring you a very unique story about a very interesting area in Nigeria, agriculture. It seems to be on the front burner these days as Nigeria tries to diversify away from oil. And our guest today has made an investment, an inroad, if you like, into that space. He is Kola Masha, the CEO of Doreo Partners. Kola, thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure, Wole. Always a pleasure.
All right. Good to have you here. So let's talk about your story first of all. How did you get into it? Because you are a Harvard MBA. It doesn't sound like the typical place for Harvard people to go. But I guess Nigeria is changing and you probably saw an opportunity, but maybe it was even more than an opportunity. Tell us how you got to where you are in terms of being a farmer, if you like.
Well, to be quite frank, it wasn't so much about the farming per se. I think for me, I realized that it's very important to me that I wake up in the morning and I'm doing something that I feel is bigger than myself. And so for us, we decided to say, let's leverage the skills that we have to really help to address the fundamental challenges facing our country, which for us, that's spiraling youth unemployment. So we recognize that hands down, if you want to create millions of jobs, and our goal at Doreo is to create 10 million jobs by 2030.
10 million jobs?
10 million jobs
Sounds
by
like
2030.
A very audacious target.
Well, it's highly doable, we believe.
Okay.
And that you have to tap into really Nigeria's job creation engine, which is agriculture. It's massive, 20+% of GDP, high growth potential, labor intensive, and really holds all the characteristics that we believe will unlock millions of jobs in the sector.
Yeah. All right, but I'm sure you didn't start as an agriculture entrepreneur. So tell us about your journey. I know you were in the private sector. How did you get here?
Well, I've wanted to be an entrepreneur for many years, but I think one of the mistakes that I've seen many people make when they try to be entrepreneurs is they really jump into it a little bit too early. I think it's important that you take your time to develop the requisite skills to become a successful entrepreneur. Particularly if you're trying to run businesses that involve managing a large group of people.
Right.
If you're managing a business where it's more about the product, technology, so on and so forth, those types of businesses typically you can jump into a little bit earlier. But the reality, if you're managing a large group of people, there's no substitute to experience to learn how to do that well. So I focus really on trying to understand the different pieces of a business. Started out in engineering, understanding product development, moved from there to the operations space, really trying to understand how to produce products efficiently and effectively, and then moved on to the commercial side to understand, okay, how do I now get these products into the hands of customers? And then over time as well, built my skill sets on the finance side, ensuring that we could raise the necessary capital to make everything work.
Right. Okay, but you're not giving us any specifics because I know you went to Harvard, you came back. Tell us about that journey, and then how did you end up doing farming?
No worries. It's so started off. When I started off my career, I looked for what company could teach me the most. and talked to a lot of different folks, and literally time after time they said that General Electric is where you want to go.
Okay.
So I focused on getting an opportunity there, got into one of their leadership development programs, worked in North America, in Europe, in Asia with them, really developing a lot of those core skills that have served me well to today. Then I wanted to focus on trying to implement some of those skills, and went and worked with some of my old boss from GE to implement a lot of what I'd learned in trying to turn around a business that had a lot of potential but was pretty struggling. And to work there in about 3 years, we tripled revenue, almost tripled the stock price. It was a great experience. And then this takes me now to when I decided to move back to Nigeria, where I was really looking for an opportunity that was at the intersection of what was important to me professionally, which is really an opportunity where I can create impact, and really early stage opportunities as well, because I find those the most intellectually stimulating. And that I found that in an organization in Nigeria called Notori, and moved back and worked the leadership team there to really help to develop the commercial strategy and play a critical role in executing that.
And of course, Notori is somewhat agriculture focused.
Yeah, that was my first foray into agriculture. Prior to that, my entire career was in the healthcare industry, actually. It was an interesting transition, because I literally went from selling artificial hearts to transplant surgeons to selling fertilizer to small-scale farmers.
All right. Okay. And of course, you found an opportunity in doing stuff for small-scale farmers. We'll get further into your story, but of course we have to take a commercial break now. And before we do that, we always like our guests to make a music selection. So, Kola, what would you like us to play?
Well, I'm always been a fan of D'banj.
All right. I'm sure we'll bring that to you. And of course, we'll come back right after this break and give you more insight into Nigeria's agricultural sector with Kola Masha. Stay with us.
Coming up on Mind Your Own Business.
It really stems from the fact that we have to be very honest with ourselves. Our home, Nigeria, we have a lot of problems. And these problems are so large that it really can't just be solved by the government or by the non-profit sector. It really can only be solved if the private sector makes a conscious effort to try to address these problems while it does what it does every day, which is making money.
I told you before, Bakali, listen. I'm the man. Oh shit. Baby, tell me what's your name. Tell me what's your number. Is it me or something else? Cause you're back, I seen that Honda. You're driving me insane. You mess with my medulla, and I'm gonna let you go in vain. And when I catch you now forever, oh, emergency, you never see me coming through. Emergency, you never see me coming through. Emergency, you never see me coming through. Emergency, you never see me coming through.
Welcome back to Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA, Africa's global bank. And I'm speaking with Kola Masha, CEO at Doreo Partners. He's an agric entrepreneur. In fact, he's more of a social entrepreneur. Kola, let's talk a bit about that element of your business, because in Nigeria today there is this craze for money, for wealth, for growth, but obviously your business goes beyond that. You're trying to make a social difference. Tell us about the underlying ideology that gets you to do what you do.
Well, I think it really stems from the fact that we have to be very honest with ourselves. Our home, Nigeria, we have a lot of problems. And these problems are so large that it really can't just be solved by the government or by the non-profit sector. It really can only be solved if the private sector makes a conscious effort to try to address these problems while it does what it does every day, which is making money. And so we set out, actually, to be frank, before I even knew about impact investing or anything like that, to say, look, how can we create and build businesses that simultaneously are sustainable, financially sustainable, but at the same time are solving really an underlying social problem.
Tell us about that? Maybe some anecdotes of your experience. You're working with farmers. How many people are you working with, and what has been the impact so far?
Well, the impact's been quite honestly, it's far exceeded our wildest expectations. We started working with and supporting about 100 farmers 4 years ago. This year, we'll be supporting well over 10,000 farmers.
10,000 people are impacted by your business directly.
Correct.
And
directly.
What type of support are you providing?
So we basically provide them a full suite of services. So we run a model we call an agricultural franchise, where we franchise grassroots level farmer cooperatives. The business is called Babangona.
Okay.
And
this is way up in the north, I imagine.
Correct.
In what, Kaduna State?
Kaduna primarily, yeah.
Okay.
And so to each of these agricultural franchises, we provide to each member of these franchises a full suite of services, from training to credit to agricultural inputs and a marketing platform for them to market their products. So through that platform, the average member has been able to increase their income about 3.5 times the national average.
Wow.
So we're talking about unlocking millions and millions and millions of dollars in new value to thousands of smallholder farmers across Nigeria.
Right. And I just imagine the potential for this to be scalable. And you are saying that your target is 10 million people by 2030. Your thoughts about how we can ramp this up?
Well, I think it really comes down to being able to unlock capital to individuals that really have been locked out of the capital sources of capital. Right. The reality, at the end of the day, the smallholder farmer in northern Nigeria really wants to be honest, earn a good living, and work hard. But unfortunately, they have no access to capital at all. And so what we've done is, over the last 4 years, develop a model where we can deploy millions of dollars in capital to these small-scale farmers and do it very effectively and efficiently. We're running 3 years in a row where we've had a 99.9% repayment rate on the capital we've deployed to them.
So the bankers should actually be listening to this in this era of non-performing loans and so forth. The fact that you're making such an impact into those lives, I imagine that those farmers want to make sure that flow can continue. And of course, because of that, they make sure they pay back their debts. But let's talk a bit more about agriculture generally, about the opportunity that Nigeria provides. How big is that opportunity? You're obviously at the forefront of tapping that now.
Well, quite frankly, it's massive. We firmly believe that Nigeria is really at a point that Brazil was, say, maybe 20, 30 years ago. If you look at the underlying fundamentals, Nigeria has about 84 million hectares of arable land. It's got 3 out of the 8 major river systems in Africa. It's got an abundant labor force, and what's one of the critical pieces to growing a strong agricultural economy is a large internal market where you can get the necessary economies of scale to really get effective and efficient.
So what you produce, you can sell internally.
You can sell internally, but you can build up the necessary economies of scale so that very rapidly you can now be very competitive selling externally. If you look at the major agricultural powerhouses, most all of them have leveraged a large internal market. Take Brazil, for example. They became the world's largest exporter of beef by just increasing their domestic production by maybe about 5-10% because they were already such a large internal market.
Right. Very interesting insight you're giving. Of course, we'll take a short commercial break and then we'll really dig deep into advice to entrepreneurs. But again, you have an opportunity, Kola, to make a music selection. So what would you like this time?
I would have to go with Dari on this one. Dari's been a long family friend and always supportive.
All right, Dari it is, and we'll bring that for you. And of course, we'll continue our conversation with Kola Masha right after this break.
Coming up on Mind Your Own Business.
Most people are really eager to just jump into becoming entrepreneurs. Patience. Life is not a race. Right. So, take an opportunity to work with people, for people, where you can learn, and that will enable you, when you become an entrepreneur, to rapidly build scale versus slogging it out for years as you're trying to learn as you're building your business.
Like a fire in the rain, I caught your eye, you took my breath away. As I watch you let your hair down, like a wave across the waters. When we kiss, I feel your tender lips. With my fingertips, I walk all over you. And I gaze into your eyes as our bodies intertwine, like I was meant to always be inside of you, inside of you, inside of you. Let me live inside you, baby.
Welcome back to Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank. We're speaking with Kola Masha, CEO at Doreo Partners, an agri-entrepreneur, indeed a social impact entrepreneur. And Kola, this time we want to really focus on transiting in the agriculture space in terms of milking the opportunity. And your thoughts about that? I imagine there are so many people in the private sector today that may be a bit tired about what they're doing, and they want to explore new opportunities in agriculture. Everyone is talking about that now. How do we start?
Well, I think you first have to think about where your competitive advantage is. So, do you want to be on the crop side, or do you want to be on the value addition processing side? So if you do have access to large amounts of land, and when I say large amounts of land, I'm talking about north of 100 hectares. Anything less than that, the economies of scale get very challenging. To be frank, even 100 hectares can be relatively small. But the reality is most people struggle to access that much land. So the reality is most opportunities that I see are really on the value addition side. Okay. So if you're on the value addition side, then you want to think about critically what markets make sense. And you want to try and look at those markets that will grow regardless of what happens with policy and other issues.
So what are low-hanging fruits for you?
Well, low-hanging fruits, first and foremost, is in the protein value chain. The reality is, in Nigeria today, it's about 9 kilograms per capita of protein. That is realistically going to grow at least 3-4-fold in the next couple decades. And particularly the poultry value chain, you're going to see massive growth. We've seen about 5% compound annual growth rate of the poultry sector from about 2000 to 2010. Another low-hanging fruit you see there is really on the rice side as well. The reality is that Nigeria can be very competitive on rice production, but we've got some challenges we have to overcome on the policy side, but the opportunity there is quite strong as well.
Right. But what about educating yourself for this opportunity? Because I do get the sense that agriculture can be a very delicate business. You could grow crops and you could lose it all because of disease. Same can go for poultry and, of course, fish. But your thoughts about education and preparing properly to get into it?
Well, I think the key thing there is to not try to do anything too complicated. Focus on well-established product lines first to get your knowledge base up. So let me give a tangible example. So if you're going to go into poultry, for example, poultry is great because there's a lot of resources to poultry. The poultry industry is already large, so there's a lot of knowledge locally, as well as you can reach out. You can, there's a lot of research available on it. But when you pick within the poultry sector, pick an area, say, for example, layers, that is less complicated than broilers. So you can learn. And because everybody has a learning curve. And then as you build up your capabilities, move on to more to higher value, more complex products.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a bit about dealing with farmers, the experience as an entrepreneur. What's that like? And what's your message to those who are thinking about it? I imagine it's not easy, but what's your message to them?
Well, I think the key thing there is, farmers are humans, just like everybody else. So, the number one thing is building trust. If you're going to be working with them in a long-term relationship, you've got to really focus on building trust, and that's a key area where we've focused our energies and been very successful at.
Right. And beyond that, just speaking more broadly as an entrepreneur, what would you leave with people who are thinking about getting into business? They want to start up something, agriculture or even outside agriculture. What are your key messages to those who are looking to explore Nigeria's opportunity?
Really, it's learn. As I said, most people are really eager to just jump into becoming entrepreneurs. Patience. Life is not a race. Right. So, take an opportunity to work with people, for people, where you can learn, and that will enable you when you become an entrepreneur to rapidly build scale versus doing the slogging it out for years as you're trying to learn as you're building your business.
You've had to learn. Help us appreciate what you went through getting into agriculture, because my understanding is that this is not something you had any practical knowledge of until you got to Notori, and then I think you had to now build so much knowledge before you got into it yourself.
Well, one thing I will forever be grateful to the leadership team at Notori is they provide me a platform to really not only just understand the Nigerian agriculture sector, but to understand the Nigerian business sector. And so I was able to do that and come out of my experience at Notori and very rapidly build my own business very successfully.
Right, but in terms of resources, where can I learn about the agricultural opportunity? Do I just go online and
No, I would actually not encourage you to go online. I encourage you to find somebody and go and work for them. I'd encourage you to go find somebody and work for them and do your time and learn on the job before you move on.
All right. Well, Kola, thank you so much for coming in today. I think it's been useful to hear about the agriculture sector in Nigeria. Kola Masha, of course, is the CEO of Doreo Partners, giving us his perspective on the opportunity in agriculture in Nigeria. I think we've learned quite a bit on today's program, and thank you for listening today. Of course, we'll come back to you next week with another guest, a new program, and giving you more insight into the opportunity that Nigeria provides to budding entrepreneurs. Thank you for listening. Good morning.
For inquiries on Mind Your Own Business, please contact UBA Customer Fulfillment Center by calling these numbers 01-280-8822, 01-631-9822, and 0700-2255-822, Facebook.com/UBA Group, Twitter.com/UBA Group, live chat www.ubagroup.com, and you can also email cfc@ubagroup.com. Today's business tips from Kola Masha is patience, trust, and learn on the job before emerging as an entrepreneur. Mind Your Own Business is brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank. Creative industries have emerged as one of the leading sectors in the economy.
Starting up a small recording studio in my dad's garage is all it took.
My story was more like experimenting with variety of flavors, baking cupcakes, brownies, donuts.
Breakthroughs are usually when you find a new way to do something.
Oh well, me and my sister set up a fashion label because we just couldn't find what we wanted in shops.
Breaking rules and great stories start with how you dare to do things differently.
So, how do you start and sustain a business?
All these and more as Africa's Global Bank, UBA, presents Mind Your Own Business, a radio program designed to initialize, educate, and motivate young entrepreneurs emerging as strong players in the local and global economy. Stay tuned for Mind Your Own Business, proudly brought to you by UBA, Africa's Global Bank.